Hello world, what's up? Jim Cirile, Tanya, Klein here from Coverage Inc., the leader in screenplay analysis, development, and editing services since February 7th, 2002. What's up, Tanya Klein?
What's up, Jim Cirile?
What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about script length. In particular, in the olden days, scripts sometimes were 120 pages long. Spec scripts were 120 pages long. Well, they're not anymore. Those days are gone, and it's about 110 pages max, and even that is rather long. And before anybody says, yeah, but Aaron Sorkin's scripts are run 180 pages. Yeah. You're not Aaron Sorkin, you're still trying to break in. And if you're writing specs to break in, your script cannot be 180 pages or 150 pages or 120 pages.
Okay. Hold up a second, Tanya. Let's back up here because you kind of jumped right into the pool. Let's go back to the 80s and the 90s during the heyday of when everybody started writing spec scripts because the market was hopping.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, people went from wanting to write the great American novel to wanting to write the great American spec script because you could sell your script for $1 million. So,
well, and even if you didn't sell it for $1 million, there were plenty of spec scripts that were in the, six figures. So, and a lot of people, in fact, were from somewhere else, came over here to Los Angeles, sold a script and said to all their friends, hey, go to LA, become a writer. It's cool.
That's exactly what happened to me. So
I know, which is why I brought it up.
Case in point, that was actually my brother-in-law that did that. So, but anyway, the point I'm making is that all the screenwriting books that came out at the time, Sid Field and William Goldman and everybody else who wrote the books that we all read back in the day, they all said screenplays should be 120 pages, and forever, that was the edict. And that was true until recently. And what has happened in probably, last 10, 15 years, maybe a little longer. But Hollywood has really become short attention span theater. They don't want to read 120-page script, and they certainly don't want to read a 137-page script or anything longer than that. And all this used to be tolerated back in the day when there was a spec market and stuff was really selling. And, basically agents and managers, especially, power agents, the guys from William Morris, who were, selling scripts all the time. Didn't matter. You could send out a script that was 156 pages. They would put their own personal rep on the line and say, trust me, it's worth your time. Trust me, it's great. And sometimes it was. And sometimes those scripts would sell for a lot of money. But you know what's going on now? I mean, look, if it's got some heat on it, if it comes from a name creator, then they'll probably read it up to any length, especially if someone is like you said, like an Aaron Sorkin type. Then those guys can get away with anything. But if you're writing a spec that you want to try to, sell or get signed to an agent or a manager, bear in mind 120 is tough now. It's not death necessarily. There are different genres that have different length expectations, which we'll get into in a second, but it ain't 120 anymore.
Yeah, okay. But one very important, and I know we keep stressing that, but it's important to keep stressing that because, again, we're going to get a few emails of people saying, yeah, but, I saw this script online and la, la, la. Again, two sets of rules. Yeah. One set of rules for people who are already in the club and get paid a lot of money to write scripts. Yeah. Another set of rules for you. Yeah. And yes, it sucks, but yeah. So if you want to maximize your chances of breaking in, Yeah, don't go, here is my 120-page masterpiece. And let's talk a little bit about genres because yes, it differs depending on what the genre is. For
Okay, well,
example,
hold on. Before
mhm,
you get to that, let's just talk about those exceptions because people are going to say, yeah, but, and those exceptions do exist. It's not just the successful creators who've earned the right to go long, although those certainly exist. And nobody's going to tell Kurt Sutter that his 87-page pilot is too long. Kurt Sutter has earned the right or to write an 87-page pilot. Okay, you haven't. You can write a 60-page pilot, right? But here's the exception. The exception is if you have an agent or a manager who's willing to go to bat for you and the script is 124 pages, you're fine. That script will get read, okay, because of that person's reputation. If you've got some bona fides in the form of, like you've won a notable contest or top three, you're a nickel fellow, something like that, and your script is 127 pages, you're fine. People will read it. It may not sell, but it will probably get you meetings and it will get you in. So there are exceptions,
there
okay?
are exceptions. However, let's also again clarify because most people watching this might still try to get representation. If you're currently trying to get representation, in other words, an agent or a manager, brevity is the soul of wit. But also, if you're going the indie route and if you're going after indie producers,
Mhm.
again, brevity is the soul of
Oh,
wit and a decent budget because
yeah.
the longer the script, usually the higher the budget.
Yeah. And that's not just indie, by the way. I mean, that is mostly true of indie, but everybody seems to think, you can write a big budget spec and sell it to Hollywood and, they're going to make your $250 million movie. And a lot of emerging writers don't understand that those big budgets are reserved for the tentpole franchise movies that are based on IP. And if you've got an original project that is not based on IP, you are not going to get a $250 million budget. You might get 10, you might even get 50 if Netflix makes it, maybe even 100. If Netflix makes it, if it happens to be championed by a director or an actor or producer that has a relationship with Netflix, but for the most part, you should always think in terms of brevity, not just because people have ADD and don't want to read a 127-page script, but because that reduces the budget. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
All right. So let's go to different genres because there are different expectations
Yeah,
depending on genre. Let's say you have a sci-fi script. So you
yeah,
have a little bit more leeway when it comes to a sci-fi script, mainly because everybody knows that you have to establish a whole new world, you have to set up the rules of the world, so that takes a bit more time. So you can go slightly longer with a sci-fi script. So nobody is going to go, oh, it's a 111-page sci-fi script. That's terrible. So that's
yeah,
still kind of in the zone. On the
yeah.
other hand, if you have a horror film, 95 pages is great.
95 pages is great. Even 85 in some cases for horror is great. That's horror is the genre that can go the lowest in terms of page count, except maybe kids animation. Where the movie itself might be 79 minutes or something like that. But you want to keep it between 85 and 105 max if you're writing a horror spec. I mean, unless it's like a supernatural thriller or something that's, really twisty and, with an ensemble where, it might be 111 and that's fine too. But for the most part, horror, you want to keep it low. Keep your page count low. That's what I
Yeah,
mean. Uh,
exactly.
Romantic comedies, 100 pages,
Mhm.
105, maybe 110. 95 is good too, you know. Let's also mention, by the way, too short is also a problem because if a script comes in too short, especially for its genre, then people are going to say, what's
What's
amiss here?
missing? Yeah. And by the way, what's usually missing is character development and setup.
Yep.
So, yes. And also, if your script is too short, it will send up red flags for readers. Like, wait a second, 80 pages? Yeah, there is something off. So that's what they'll think before they even start reading.
Yeah. Comedies, again, keep them short. 100 pages, okay? 105 tops. If you've got a 114-page comedy, people's first thought is, why is this comedy 114 pages? Nobody wants to read a 114-page comedy. Again, back in the day, that was perfectly fine. That might have even been considered a short script. Not so much anymore. Um, let's talk about a couple of genres where the expectations for a little bit longer are so. Um, Period drama. Now, we're not advising anyone to write a period drama, but if you do write a period drama, if it's below 105 pages, that might be like, is there enough drama in your drama?
Exactly. And
You
let's
know?
quickly detour because otherwise people are going to be wondering, in case they have not seen previous videos or read any of our newsletters, why do we advise against, as a writer trying to break in, why do we advise against writing a period drama?
Mm.
Because nobody wants to make them.
Yeah, exactly. We'll link to and we'll link to it another one of our videos where we talk about marketability in the description. But yeah, we have several other videos where we talk about the pros and cons of the different genres to write. But again, continuing on with the thought of scripts where people expect a little bit more length. Ensemble movies. Again, we're not recommending you write one as a spec, as an emerging writer. They're problematic as specs, but if you do, if it's 100 under 100 pages, people are going to wonder if there's enough there. War movies. People sort of expect war movies, war dramas, anything like that to be around 120 still. Like, you know, we we would advise you to not write that movie, but if you're going to go ahead and do it, 115 to 120 is probably pretty good. That tells people right away that you've got enough meat on the bones.
Exactly. But yes, in general, shorter is better because look at it from the point of view of the gatekeepers. These people read scripts. On weekends, they take home scripts. At night, they read scripts.
Yeah.
And they have to decide if they're going to elevate these scripts to their bosses. That's a lot of scripts. They open a file and it's 120 pages and seems rather dense. And so my first impression is so I'm going
Right.
to read the first 2 pages and I'll find a reason to pass on this script. So you don't want to, in other words, look, guys, it's hard enough. This business, don't make it harder on yourself, is
Yeah.
what we're saying.
Yeah, and in other cases, it might be that same person with that same pile of scripts might look at, the 9 scripts that they're expected to read over the 3-day weekend, for example. And okay, one of them's 92 pages, 97 pages, 105 pages. Oh, 122 pages. Which one do you think they're going to read first? Right? And so they're going to put the long one to last because they might be able to knock out two other scripts, 290 pagers, right? In roughly, I mean, it's not going to be the same amount of time, but still, people are always going to want to do the easy ones first. And so what may happen is they keep kicking the can down the road. Months later, nobody's read your script because nobody wants to read something that's that long. Whereas, the 90-page guys, they've already gotten their passes. Or
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So
that's pretty much it. That's where we're coming from when it comes to length. And I think one piece of advice that I would give to everyone, regardless of whether your length is fine for the genre, is go back and do an edit pass anyway. Look carefully at what you've written, scrutinize your writing, scrutinize your dialogue, scrutinize the thick blocks of text, and just ask yourself, what can I cut? Do I need all these words? And if you trim, a couple of dozen words from each scene or even a quarter page From each scene, you might wind up saving 5 pages over the course of a script. It's a beautiful thing. And boy, that'll also have the effect of picking up the pace and making it a more engaging read for the reader.
Exactly. And as always, if you have any questions, you can reach us at info@coverageinc.com.
Advice is always free. Bye-bye, folks.